Here and spending a little time with us tonight. I'm not going to take up a lot of your time, but I know that what I need to talk about is very important as well because we all want to find money to go to college. I'm going to give you a little background about myself first so that you know everything I'm telling you is not a lie. I've actually worked at Embry Riddle Aeronautical University for 13 years. I'm currently an assistant director of admissions, but I started my career there as a financial aid counselor. And I was a counselor there for 7 years for freshman students. So believe me when I tell you, I have been pushing scholarships. I still am a huge advocate for my students and I champion free money as much as possible. I remember myself going through the college process and now myself saddled with some student loan debt. I don't want to see any of my students have to go through similar. So I'm going to give you some basic information. I do have some lists of scholarship sites where you can get started on your search and just some tips and some advice. As well, if you have any questions at all, I'll be happy to answer them either through the chat. I'll try and keep up with that. Sometimes it's hard to see it when I share my screen, but also at the end of the presentation, if you have any questions, I can stay on as long as you need me to answer questions. So if you just give me one moment, I'm going to share my screen so you can see my presentation. All right, and can everyone see that? If I can get a thumbs up from someone, that's perfectly fine. Awesome, thank you. All right, so my presentation is going to be pretty brief, but we're going to talk about all the pieces that come together to make financial aid work for students. So some of the topics that we're going to talk about are some basic financial aid terms and definitions so that when you talk to different colleges and they start discussing financial aid, you'll know what we're talking about. We're going to talk about the different types of financial aid. I know Alejandra touched on a few of those and I'll be able to expand on that. We're going to discuss a little bit about the FAFSA, how it works, how you apply. We are going to also talk about the CSS profile that she mentioned. And finally, I am going to touch on that searching for scholarships, giving you links and advice that have really helped our students. Again, with all the years of experience that I've seen students come through my office, getting all this aid, I've seen what works and I've seen what doesn't. So I'm happy to share this advice with you. So the first thing we're going to talk about are the different financial aid terms. The first thing that we are going to talk about is the award letter. So what happens when you are accepted to a university? You normally will fill out your FAFSA, and then the financial aid office at that university is going to put together what they call their award letter or award packet. And that's going to include all the aid that you're eligible to receive based on FAFSA results, whatever merit aid the school is going to give you, and then sometimes, depending on the state that you're in or the territory, you might be able to qualify for some additional funding from the local government. And that altogether will be in your award letter. The award letter is also going to contain something that's called the cost of attendance. That is your full bottom line. That doesn't mean when you see cost of attendance that, wait a minute, UChicago just told me it was $20,000 a year and now they're charging me $50,000. What's going on? What the cost of attendance is going to be is everything put together. It's your tuition, your mandatory fees, your housing, your meals, and then we also include what we call indirect costs. And indirect costs are just some extra, a little bit of wiggle room, let's say, for reasonable expenses for living. So we understand that when you come to college, it's not just your tuition. You might need money for books. You might need either airfare to come home for holiday break. You might, if you have a car on campus, you might need gasoline for that car. You might need insurance for that car. You might not have a job just yet. So reasonable expenses. You might need a haircut. You might need a pair of jeans. You might need to get a skateboard to get across campus. There's all these different things that you can kind of fit into a total cost of attendance. And again, reasonable cost of attendance. It doesn't mean that you're going to buy yourself a Kawasaki motorcycle because you have to get around campus. We're not going to allow for that. But we're going to allow for a bicycle, for example, if you need that, or a laptop, or an iPad. Things like that can be folded into your total cost of attendance. Why that's important is that your total cost of attendance is how much you actually can either get in financial aid or borrow in loans if you need to. So, for example, at Embry-Riddle, our total cost of attendance for this year is about $52,000, and that's everything. That's the whole enchilada. From that $52,000, let's say that the FAFSA gives you $10,000. So now we have $42,000. Let's say that you're able to get 20,000 in external scholarships. So now we're looking at 22,000. And let's say that you have to take out a student loan and you want to make sure that you include money for your computer and everything else. You can take up to that 22,000 that you have remaining, but you can't exceed that. We can't pay you to go to school, but you can include enough, including all those extra expenses, because that is still part of your total cost of attendance. Now, let's say that you borrow that $22,000 and you get another scholarship and you get another $2,000 that came in late. Well, usually it depends on the institution, but at Embry Riddle, for example, what we'll do is that we'll apply that $2,000 scholarship and we'll reduce your loan. We prefer that you actually have free money than have to carry on more debt. The FAFSA is what Alejandra mentioned, is the free application for federal student aid. That's the acronym for it. Please keep in mind the word free. There are some companies out there and some people out there that will want to charge you. And I've had families tell me that they paid $150 to have their FAFSA filed. It's free and you can do it yourself online and it's very easy to do. I'll get into it a little later, but just make sure that you do fill that out because it lets us know what the government says you can participate in based on educational funding. There might be some low-cost student loans. There might be some free grants that you don't have to pay back, but there's always going to be some kind of benefit to filing the FAFSA. The expected family contribution, or EFC, is actually the result of the FAFSA. Now, it's a misnomer. I don't really like calling it the expected family contribution because that's not really what it means. Sometimes with some of my students, your expected family contribution is 0. Does that mean that your family does not have to pay anything? No. What that means is it's an index that the government uses to determine the programs that you're eligible to receive. The lower your EFC, the more likely that you'll be able to get a student loan, for example, that doesn't charge any interest until you graduate. Or you might be able to get a Pell Grant, for example. So the EFC, keep in mind, it's just the results of the FAFSA. It doesn't mean, oh, my expected family contribution is 5, so we only have to pay $5. That's not exactly how it works. Again, financial aid package is very similar to what I mentioned about the award letter. It's going to be everything put together of what you're receiving in your financial aid at the time of printing. Why that's important is because you might be applying for some scholarships during the summer and you receive your financial aid package. It might only have FAFSA results. It might have a merit scholarship from the school and maybe something from a local government, but you'll say, hey, wait a minute. I applied to Dell Computers. They had a scholarship and I won $2,000. Why is it not on there? Because the school hasn't been notified by the time the financial aid package was sent out. So just keep that in mind when you receive it. For us, financial aid package is just everything that we've received to date that is part of your financial aid. Gift aid basically is scholarships and grants. That's free money. That's money that you do not have to pay back. A grant is usually free money that's based on financial need. So again, when I mentioned you file the FAFSA and let's say your family contribution is 0, that means you're eligible for a Pell Grant through the federal government. And the Pell Grant this year, I think was paying something like $6,700 for the year. That is free money that you do not have to pay back and you're eligible based on financial need. A scholarship is generally based on academic merit. This is similar to, again, it's on there, merit-based aid and need-based aid. So I'm talking about the same things. It's your grades, your GPA, sometimes it's the rigor of your coursework. If you submit your test scores, that's taken into consideration as well, but it's all academic based. It has nothing to do with financial need, it's need blind. A student loan is an educational funding that students can get. It's very different from getting like a mortgage or a loan for your car. Generally, student loans can be lower interest rates. Some might be variable rate, some might be fixed. We'll get into that a little bit later, but there's a couple of different types of loan programs. And because you're using it for education, a lot of lenders understand that you won't actually start repayment until a couple years down the road, as opposed to a regular loan, which you take out money today and 30 days from now you have to start your first payment. So it's a little bit different. Not every institution like a bank or a credit union will offer educational loans, but many do, and the federal government actually helps offer loan as well. Now, work study is an option for students that want to be able to work on campus while they're students, or you can even find off-campus work. Some student employment offices will help you. and you actually will earn funds that you can then use for your educational expenses. So say that your total cost of attendance, again, includes money for books, but you don't really want to borrow that money. You can actually do work study, and whatever money that you're working on and that you're pocketing, you can save and pay for your textbooks for the next semester, or if you save enough, you can do a summer semester and maybe not have to pay for tuition for the summer. So there's different things that you can do. It's generally pretty easy work, and at least at our institution, students are maxed out at 20 to 25 hours a week. It's all going to be based on your school schedule, because you're first and foremost a student. You are not an employee. So for us, if you have to take some time off because you have to go study for a test or you have a project that's due, we completely understand. You don't get penalized for that at all. And that's the benefit actually of working through your financial aid office and your student employment office, as opposed to just going outside and finding a job and being able to pay for school that way. The final thing is verification. Verification is important, and hopefully not a whole lot of you have to go through it because it is a bit of a pain. But it's actually a process where the Department of Education randomly selects some FAFSAs because they want to do a mini audit. They basically just want to make sure that everything that was listed on the FAFSA is correct and accurate. So it tasks the financial aid office to collect information from you. Because the FAFSA requires parents' tax information, verification will sometimes require parents to submit tax transcripts. You might have to fill out a worksheet indicating how many people are in your household. You may have to submit copies of a W-2. There's a couple of different documents that the financial aid office will require from you, and they have to complete the verification process before you can receive your federal aid. So you may be selected for verification and you have your Pell Grant and you're counting on that $6,700 to help meet your total cost. Well, you have to make sure that your paperwork is in, you're following up with the financial aid office before the payment due date for the school, because otherwise, don't count on that $6,700. It won't actually activate until the verification process is complete. Again, it is random. Not every student is selected, not every year. So you might be selected for verification one year and not the next. It's really just a kind of a roll of the dice. But again, it's a bit of a pain to collect all this information. It does take some time. So hopefully not a whole lot of you have to go through it. So we're going to talk about the different types of financial aid. I know I touched on this already, so I'm going to go kind of quickly. But again, grants and scholarships, free money. Need-based, so it's going to be based on financial need, or it can be merit-based and do not have to get paid back. Oftentimes it can be through the federal government. Scholarships are often offered through institutions, through the universities themselves. And then there are from private sources, external scholarships, which I'll get into later. If you are a student athlete, for example, and you get athletic scholarships, that's again free money, comes from the university from a separate budget. And it is usually renewable every year as long as you maintain a certain GPA and you're still on the team, because scholarships are academically based. Again, student loans, that's money that you're going to be borrowing, and it does have to get repaid with some interest. There are federal student loans, so this is why it's important to file the FAFSA. Students that file FAFSA are automatically given Stafford loans. That's a special loan program, and it's only a maximum amount that you can receive every year. First year students, you get a maximum of $5,500 per year. Sometimes it's a combination between a subsidized loan and an unsubsidized loan. And subsidized just means that the government will cover the interest on that loan while you're in school. So you don't actually start accruing any interest until you graduate. An unsubsidized loan means that interest is accruing while you're in school, but the loan interest rates are very, very low for federal loans. So if you need to take out any kind of loans, I definitely recommend go with the Stafford loans first, go with the federal loans before you look at anything else. Again, with both of these loan programs, no payments are required until you graduate. And currently, I believe the subsidized Stafford loan was about a 3 or 4% interest rate, and the unsubsidized was about a 5 or 6. Either way, again, there are good loans to get if you end up needing student loans. As a second year student, you get $6,500 a year, and then in your third year and your fourth year, you get $7,500 each year. Again, that's the maximum you can receive, and whether you get unsubsidized and subsidized or you get it all in unsubsidized is just going to be dependent on your FAFSA results. So you have to file your FAFSA every year. The federal government also makes available for parents of students to take out an educational loan for whatever your remaining cost is, and that's called the Parent Plus loan. Parent Plus loan has a fixed interest rate, so that's a really huge benefit nowadays. The interest rate is set right now, and I think it's 6.8%, with no payments at all required until your student graduates from college. And then you get 9 months of a grace period, kind of gives you 9 months to find a job and start earning some income before a payment is due on that loan. It is a really good loan option to get if you are considering student loans. You will want to talk to your financial aid office to see when they would want you or when they recommend that you apply for that. For us, for example, if a student is to start school with us in fall of 2021, we would recommend that you not apply for a Parent Plus loan until probably June of 2021, because when they pull your credit for that loan, that credit check is only good for about 60 to 90 days. That means that if you jump the gun and you apply in February because you want to make sure you have that funding, the loan will expire before we can set it up for the August start term. And so you would have to reapply. So you're basically having your credit pulled twice for no reason. We definitely, again, recommend that if you are going to have to look at student loans, that you go the federal route, because the federal government, sorry to be trite, but they want their money. They're not going to put you in a situation where you can't pay. So actually, currently, our federal loan programs have about 9 different repayment options, including income-sensitive repayment. They sometimes will consider like graduated repayment, where your payment starts small and little by little it keeps growing until you're at what they would expect to be a reasonable payment amount, depending on how much you borrowed. So there are different plans and different programs if you're looking into that. There are also another type of student loan that's called private loans. Those are loans that are offered through banks or credit unions, and those are usually, depending on the bank, variable interest rates. That means that they could offer you a 5% rate today when you apply, but oh, the market shifted and now we have to increase your interest rate and now it's 12%. And you really don't have a whole lot of say because you agreed to a variable rate. So that's something that you definitely want to keep in mind. For some families, it seems to work best. Parents might not want to take on the responsibility of that loan. So a private loan is actually under a student's name. Student does have to be 17 at the time to apply, or 18, and they will need to have a credit-worthy cosigner. So does not have to be a parent. If you have a grandparent that wants to co-sign, or if you are lucky enough to have a family friend that wants to co-sign on a loan, you can use them. It does not have to be a parent that co-signs on that loan with you. But keep in mind, read the fine print. Private loans are a little bit messier to get involved with, and private loans do actually sometimes require payment before you're even done graduating. Some will tell you you have a payment that you don't have to make until, like, say 4 years. Well, let's say that at the end of 4 years, you decide instead of going out to the workforce, you want to go out and do a graduate degree, you want to get your master's or your doctorate. You're going to have to start repayment no matter what. They don't consider you still being in school as valid reason to not start repayment on your loan. Really quick, before I move on, I saw that there was a chat flash. Okay, with the federal rate going down, does that affect the rate of the student or parent loan? That's an excellent question. Currently, there has not been any talk of it, but oftentimes, yes, it does. It affects a lot of what the student loan legislation is. Keep in mind, too, that we are in an election year this year. I don't know how much longer Betsy DeVos is going to be in charge of the Department of Education. So the next secretary that comes in, or it could be even her if they are reelected, they might decide to revamp the student loan program, and sometimes they will reduce the rates. It sometimes can be adjusted. I'd say within the last 5 years, the Stafford loan rate has gone down. Originally, when I was working in financial aid, they were both about 6.8%. And then the subsidized went down significantly, and it went down to currently about 3 something. And now the unsubsidized is coming down to match it. So yes, it can be adjusted, but for the most part, when you accept your awards, they are fixed. You don't have to worry about the volatility of a stock market affecting your loan rates with student loans. They are fixed rate loans. The last piece that I did mention earlier was the work study opportunity. Again, it's work study that is funded usually through the federal government. When you apply for your FAFSA, the school gets that information. And if you are eligible, your EFC is low enough, then the federal funds will kick in to cover your salary. Otherwise, schools also have what they call, it's federal work study, and they also have student employment. At least for us, there's a distinction. And the only difference is where the money's coming from. Federal work study means the government's covering it, whereas student employment means that the money's coming from Embry Riddle directly. So it matters to file the FAFSA only to know who's paying your bill, but ultimately it's, you can work on campus, you can earn this money for yourself, and some schools will include it as part of your financial aid package. Some schools will not. We do not include it, for example, because you are paid a live paycheck and we can't attest to what you're going to do with that money. You might take that salary from your week and put it towards your books, or you might put it towards your tuition. Some students might use it to buy pizza for the whole weekend. We can't really say, so we don't include it as part of your aid. But can you get that? Can you use it for financial aid? Absolutely. All right, so we're going to talk about the FAFSA really quick. And the FAFSA, again, free application for federal student aid. It is an easy application to do. It opens every year on October 1st, and it uses 2 years ago tax information. So I know that you're going to consider, okay, wait a minute, 2 years ago, my parents' income was different. We had a lot of things going on. That's not going to be reflected on the FAFSA. Don't worry. The government has made some provisions within the FAFSA that are going to account for changes from 2 years ago. And keep in mind that after you file the FAFSA, if something significant happens where it's going to change what your parents' income information is reported on your taxes, contact your financial aid office. There are things that they can do where they can override FAFSA results to reflect the current situation. For example, if you file your FAFSA, everything's good, and then all of a sudden a family member has a medical emergency and your parents have to spend $10,000 on medical bills. Well, that wasn't taken into consideration when you filed the FAFSA. So you call your financial aid office and you let them know, hey, this just happened. What can I do? Because I want to make sure that this is being considered when I'm being awarded aid. They will collect some additional information from you. They might need some receipts from the doctor. They might need some proof of this bill payment. But there are things that we can override to then be able to possibly make you eligible for a Pell Grant where you may not have been before, or make you eligible for a subsidized Stafford loan where you may not have been so before. Additionally, if there's nothing that they can do with the federal form with the FAFSA, the school might also be able to consider you for additional funding to help supplement the shortfall, because we do look at the whole situation, the big picture. But again, every year, October 1st, you have to file, because every year your financial situation is going to be different, and you have to make sure that you use tax information from 2 years ago. Once you file the first time, it's very easy to renew every year. So that's going to take me to the middle point where it says to sign up for your FSA account, your federal student aid account. It's going to give you an opportunity to sign up for like an electronic signature. So that every year when you go in to sign, both the student needs their own FSA account, and then the parent that's going to be signing the FAFSA has to have their own FSA account. For situations where students have parents that are divorced, you're going to submit information on your FAFSA of the parent that you spend 50% or more time with. So if your mom got custody and your dad has visitation, it's your mom's information that's going to go on the FAFSA. That's not to say that dad can't contribute, and if dad wants to take out a Parent Plus loan, they definitely can, even not having filed the FAFSA. You will want to work with your financial aid office about that. But that's the information that you're going to be able to use. And then again, you sign up for your FSA, that's going to be the same account every single year. And when you want to either accept your Stafford loans or you want to apply for a Parent Plus loan, you would use the FSA account and the FSA signing. The FAFSA allows for you to list about 10 different schools that are going to be receiving your FAFSA results. Doesn't mean that you have to apply to those schools to list them. If you're even just interested in a school, you can list them on your FAFSA, and then you can go in and change them and swap schools out later if you wanted to. But a school can't do anything with your FAFSA information if they can't receive the results. So you have to make sure that you list them. There's a 5-digit federal school code or 6-digit code that schools use. It's basically like our electronic address, and that guarantees that we receive FAFSA results. At Embry Riddle, for example, when you apply and after you're accepted, if you filed your FAFSA, that's when we can start putting together your financial aid. So you have to be an accepted student first, but you can still go ahead and file the FAFSA even before you've received any acceptance to any universities that you're interested in, because they'll be able to process it once you're formally accepted to the school. So the next steps with FAFSA, we talked again about the EFC, the financial aid package. That's when you decide whether or not you want to accept the awards that you're offered on there. You may need to submit some additional documentation. So for the Stafford loans, for example, you do have to do what's called entrance counseling, which is an online loan quiz. It's just to make sure that you understand what a loan means, what it means to have interest, what it means to have repayment. And then you have to sign what's called a master promissory note. Don't write anything down. Don't worry about this. Don't stress out. All this will be explained to you when you're accepted to university and you're given financial aid. Master promissory note is just basically the credit agreement. You're signing, understanding that, yes, I accept this loan at this rate, and I understand that I have to repay it when I'm done with school. That's it. And once you sign the master promissory note and you complete the entrance counseling, you don't have to do that again for 10 years. So if you decide you're done with school in 4 years and you want to go on for 2 more years to get a master's degree and you want to use Stafford loans at that point, you can, and you do not have to re-sign for them. Again, if you're selected for verification, very, very, very important that you get all the information into your financial aid office as quickly as possible. It is time sensitive. We want to make sure you get your aid as quickly as you can. The process can be a little lengthy and be a little tedious. When and if you are selected for verification, if your parents have to submit tax information, we can't accept just the tax returns. We actually have to accept tax transcripts, and you can obtain those online through the IRS website, which is on there, irs.gov. I will be sharing this presentation with Ms. Evie Cook, so if you have any questions at all or you want to see the presentation, I'm sure that she'll be able to email it to you. So don't worry if you can't write anything down or I'm going through everything too quickly. Again, renew your FAFSA every single year. Your financial aid and your family situation changes from year to year. So that's why it's important for you to file every year on October 1st. The CSS profile. This is what Alejandra was talking about earlier. It's called the College Scholarship Service Profile. About 200 schools in the US on state side use the CSS profile to offer additional aid to students. And the process is very, very similar to the FAFSA. It's a little more invasive because it does require a lot more information. So they do take tax information, but they also want to know like household size, age of the older parent. There's a lot of different things that you have to provide to the CSS profile to be able to be considered for aid from them. The CSS profile does have a cost to it, whereas the FAFSA is free. The CSS profile costs, I believe it's 25, can't really read my screen right there, but it's 16 for every additional school. It can be waived if you receive a waiver for the SAT. Lately, because of what's going on with the COVID situation, we don't really know what the SAT taking opportunities are going to be. But if you decide to use the CSS profile, you can. It's just simply a way for schools, especially private universities, to decide on additional aid that they can offer you that goes above and beyond merit aid and whatever they can offer. This is more like need-based aid, but they use this information beyond what the FAFSA is going to offer you as well. You would sign into the College Board website where you would take your SAT in order to complete the CSS profile. So again, it's a good tool to use if you want to and you can pay those extra fees. Me personally, I would ask the school directly if they have their own application additional for any aid. Some schools don't, and some schools do have, again, like Alejandra mentioned, UChicago has their own scholarship application that's free. So why pay when you can do the same, have the same opportunities basically for free? I'm not a fan of the CSS profile, but it is there. I want to make everyone aware of it. So it is another tool that you can use to help search for funding. Searching for scholarships. This is my favorite part to talk about because I cannot stress this enough to my students. So you definitely want to be organized when you're looking for scholarships. Some of the things that we recommend students and some of the tips that we have gotten from students at our school that have been very successful is that they make themselves a list or sometimes an Excel spreadsheet, and they list out scholarship name, the date that the scholarship becomes available, the amount of the scholarship. Sometimes they'll list out, okay, are they asking for 1 essay or 2 essays? Do they need a resume? Do they need letters of recommendation? They have everything listed out. And then the deadline. You have to pay attention to the deadlines for scholarships. I have seen the heartbreak on some of my students' faces when they have worked extremely hard to put together a financial aid, an essay packet. They have everything together for one scholarship application, and then they send it off and it was postmarked 1 day late. They will not accept it. So please, deadlines are very, very, very important. Don't worry about those that you may not have heard back from. Just if you have your spreadsheet going, just keep track of the ones that you applied to. And you can always apply the next year. Make sure that you also check the dates that they become available, but this is something that you want to do every single year. The more organized you keep yourself, the easier it's going to become every year to search for these scholarships. And this is an every year thing that you're going to do. I recommend to start now. Start in the fall looking for scholarships because a lot of applications have already opened or will be opening soon for the next school year. And don't get discouraged. That's another really big thing. I have students that tell me, you know what, I already applied to like 50 scholarships and I haven't heard anything back. Well, that doesn't mean anything. Go ahead and keep applying because 50 is a drop in the bucket. It really is a numbers game. Think about if you go fishing and you ever go net fishing and you have to cast your net wide and far as much as you can to catch at least something in your net. And you're just gonna have to keep trying and keep casting that net. But don't give up. Another thing I tell my students is when you go and see a scholarship application, and some schools might tell you something completely different, I'm telling you what's worked for my kids. You see a scholarship application and they have 5 different parameters that they're looking for. Even if you think you don't meet all the criteria, go ahead and apply. The worst they're going to tell you is no. But I have had male students get female scholarships that way. I had one student one year, I'm going to tell you a quick story just because I find it so funny, and had it not happened to me, I would have never believed it. I had a student one year who found a $2,000 scholarship being offered by PETA, People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals. All they wanted from him, well, whoever the successful candidate was, they wanted them to write an essay on the benefits of being a vegan. I highly doubt this student was a vegan, but he went ahead and wrote the essay. He brought it to my office and he said, hey, do you mind looking over this with me? Make sure everything's spelled correctly. I really need this $2,000. I said, absolutely, let's look everything over. So we checked everything out, made sure it was good, sent it out right from my office. About 2 weeks later, he came back into my office and he said, hey, I found another scholarship I want to apply for. And it's $500, you know, it would really help me out. Can I use the same essay that I wrote for PETA? Will that be plagiarism? I said, no, you're not in a class. You can use the same essay. He says, yeah, I just want to change a couple words. That's it. I said, sure, go ahead. That's not a problem. He never brought it back to me. I never got to see it. All I know is that at the start of August, before the school started, we got the $2,000 check from PETA, and I was so excited for him. But then about 3 weeks later, we got a $500 check for him from the Beef Council of America. So again, if it didn't happen to me, I would have never believed it. Apply, apply, apply. Even if you don't think that you meet the criteria, even if you don't think that there's a chance that you can get the scholarship because it's a women's association, they want a girl to apply and I'm a guy, go ahead and apply. Like I said, the worst they can tell you is no. All right, so we have a quick question. Note indicated FAFSA available on October 1st. No, it's not due by October 1st. It's actually similar to school with rolling admission. It's open and it's available for the 2021-2022 school year on October 1st, and that's every year. So currently, the FAFSA is still available for this current school year. If you were to, for example, start in the spring or in the summer of next year, you'd still be considered part of this school year. So you could still technically file the 2020 and 2021 FAFSA at the same time. Next, you can't actually do the 2021, 22, and 22 FAFSA, pardon me, until October of this year. That's when that one will open. All right, so another thing that's really important, when you apply for scholarships, a lot of them are gonna ask for essays. My best advice is write 1 or 2 essays that answer the same basic question that you're gonna see, and then just copy and paste. Tailor that essay. You're gonna spend a lot less time writing and a lot more time applying for these applications, for these essays. I'm sorry, for these scholarships. So generally, essays tend to ask for, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Why did you choose the career path that you want to, or the major that you want to study? What was your greatest accomplishment? What is something that, how would you describe yourself? Sometimes it's very general questions like that. You start your first application, see what that essay is asking for, write it out, and then again, kind of just copy and paste, change it along as you find other applications that might be asking some variation of that question. And that way, again, you're not spending so much time writing these essays as you are actually applying for these scholarships. Because sometimes the essay writing gets tedious, and that's usually where my students end up getting stuck and don't want to do it anymore. And I don't really blame them. I don't like writing either. Make the essay personal, show off your flair, tell us what makes you unique. If there are any kind of volunteer opportunities, have you done community service? Is there, some career path that you see yourself doing in 5 years, or whatever the case may be? Just make it about you. Very similar to what Alejandra said again. If your essay got tossed in the trash bin and your mom picked it up, will she be able to tell it's you? That's what we want to see. We want to see your unique character, your unique personality shine through. Remember to proofread. I know nowadays with the texting and cutting out a bunch of letters for things that a lot of students don't want to write the whole word out. I know what LOL means, but that doesn't mean the scholarship committee is going to appreciate it. So again, go through, proofread, use the actual proofreading tools that you have on Microsoft Word. Make sure that it's spelled correctly, that everything's grammatically correct as well. Go to your English teachers. And they are going to be appreciative of you going to them and asking for this help before you send an essay off that might be a little cringeworthy otherwise. I don't think I have to tell you guys this, but plagiarism, not allowed. Make sure that you give credit. If you quote something on your essay, make sure you credit who the quote came from. If you pull up statistics that you're writing about something, make sure that you cite the source where you got your statistics from. Schools might not necessarily, or scholarship committees might frown upon that if they see that, hey, this person quoted something, but they never indicated where that's coming from. And that doesn't leave a good taste in everybody's mouth. You might want to list, if you want to write an essay, I suggest you also do an academic resume, very similar to a work resume, where you're going to list out the classes that you've taken. If you've taken any kind of honors or challenging classes like AP or International Baccalaureate, any projects that you've worked on, even if it's not school related, even if during the summer you help build houses or you help plant trees for a local elementary school, or you did a beach cleanup, that all counts. And that's all something that helps round out who you are and give us a good glimpse of what would make you a good candidate to receive this money over everybody else. Work experience, again, you don't have to get paid for it. If you've done volunteer work, that definitely counts, and it shows leadership, it shows initiative, and it shows that you care about your community. Any kind of honors that you've received, any kind of awards. And then again, if you do want to include your career goals, I want to be an aerospace engineer and I want to work for SpaceX in 5 years. Put that down, put all that information in. Be honest about yourself, because that's the important thing. Scholarship committees read thousands of essays and thousands of applications. You want to stand out. Sometimes some of my students have actually opted to add a headshot photograph on their resume attached to it, because sometimes seeing the person that's submitting the application or the scholarship cert is something that might be the one thing that stands you out above everybody else. Like, oh, this person included a photo. Let me take a closer look. Let me read their essay. Let me read their resume. So just a couple tips to help you out, hopefully help you stand out. Don't get discouraged. And bottom line, just keep applying. Apply, apply, apply. There's so much money out there and not enough people applying for these scholarships. So to get you started, I've put together a quick list of some scholarship sites. These are not school affiliated. These are just organizations that have compiled different scholarships for students. So what I would recommend, if you don't like receiving spam email, I know I don't, set up another email account that's going to be exclusively for scholarships, and don't make it anything crazy. Don't be like surferboy12 at AOL. Make something professional. It could be your name and then a couple digits afterwards. Keep it something professional, because ultimately, if you want to include that on a scholarship application, you want to make sure that it reflects a little bit more professionalism. This is where you want to kind of rein in the unique. But also, when you sign up for some of these, they're going to start flooding you with a lot of information, because you have to set up a profile with some of them. You have to fill in some information about, okay, I'm a female student, I'm Hispanic, I'm looking to study medicine. All of a sudden, when you start checking those boxes, they're going to be like, oh, check this scholarship out, check that scholarship out. Some might not necessarily even be a good match, but they're going to start emailing you. And sometimes it's a condition of being able to use the site to apply for scholarships. But go ahead, look at each one of these, apply to whatever you find on there. Feel free, go on Embry Riddle's website, click on the tab that says financial aid, and then click on the link that says scholarships and grants. We have compiled a list of different scholarships that have nothing to do with our school. It's just outside organizations, and it's a resource that we offer to our students. Go ahead and use it. Even if you don't plan on coming to Embry Riddle, use that information and find those scholarships. I am all about finding free money and lessening the amount that you actually have to pay out of pocket when you're done with school. So another quick word of advice, don't pay for any scholarships. If a scholarship says, hey, you might be in the running for $12,000, you just have to pay a $39.95 fee, don't. I would say 99% of scholarship applications are free, and they should be. I'm not saying it's necessarily a scam, but I pinch my pennies. I don't like spending money if I don't have to. So apply to the free ones. Go for the free applications, go to the free scholarships, and don't look so much at the ones that actually charge you. Another piece of advice I want to mention, everybody's lured by that big dollar sign. Like I just mentioned, hey, $12,000 scholarship right here, apply, apply, apply. Well, you and 100,000 other students saw that, and they're all going to apply for it because, hey, it's $12,000. I'll even apply for it. I'm not even in school anymore. Apply to the smaller scholarships, because you know what? If you get 10 $250 scholarships, guess what you just have? If you apply to a $50 scholarship, it might not be a whole lot, but that means there's not going to be a lot of competition for it either. And then you know what you can put on your resume? Hey, I was a scholarship recipient of such and such foundation. You don't have to put down the amount that you got. You don't have to say, hey, they only gave me a $10 gift card, but you did apply and you received a scholarship. And sometimes scholarship committees will look at that and say, oh, wait, he's already received an award. Let's take a look at him again, or let's take a look at her resume and her essay and see what it was that made her stand apart, that she was able to get this other award. Just a couple of tricks of the trade. Just, you're not lying, but you're not really adding that additional information. You just want to make sure that you are putting yourself out there to be head and shoulders above the competition. Do I have any questions at all? Anything I didn't cover, anything you're curious about? Again, I'll be sending this information to Ms. Cara, so if you want a copy of the presentation, I'm sure she'll be able to email that to you. I'm always happy to help as well, so I will put my contact information up on the screen. If you have any questions at all, I'm always available. Even if you're not planning on coming to Embry Riddle, I'm always happy to help. Cara, you'll attest to that.
Yes, thank you so much, Adrienne. A wealth of knowledge.
No
so
problem.
grateful for your time, your advice, and your stories. I know that we'll certainly be in touch. I know Miss Adrienne's probably going to come speak to those of you who are my students and in the DP, so you're going to get to meet her a little bit later as well. But like she mentioned, you know, with the FAFSA and CSS, et cetera, opening on October 1st, I'll be sending out more reminders about that and specific links to resources that we've already developed as kind of like step-by-step guides to the FAFSA, things to consider. There are some unique differences for those of us who are submitting that document from the US Virgin Islands. So there's some kind of differences in our ability or inability to use things like a data retrieval tool, or if you do get selected for verification, some different steps that we kind of have to go through with IRB. So we certainly will work through that together. But I think, oh, I'm seeing lots of thank yous and copies of the presentation. So yeah, we'll get all that information out, but super grateful for your time. I don't think I have anything else. So unless there's anything else, thanks so much. This is a wonderful, wonderful time.
Thank you all very, very much. Virgin Islands is very close to my heart. I love my students from there. So again, if there's anything I can do to help, Ms. Cara will put you in touch with me. And good luck on your college search, on your financial aid and your scholarship search, and bright futures for everybody is my wish for all. So thank you so much again for spending the time with me tonight.